now your host, Mr. Swislocki!
Welcome to the show. Hopefully you noticed a different song playing during the opening. That piece is called Invasion, and it's by musician and one of Riverside's very own teachers, Mr. Christopher Basich. I'll share my conversation and a performance from him later during the show. But first, a young boy walks up to his mother and proclaims, "When I grow up, I'm going to be a musician." The mother looks down and replies, "Oh, sweetheart, you can't do both." You get it, because you can't grow up and be a musician at the same time. All right, let's try this one. How many conductors does it take to screw in a light bulb? Who knows? Nobody ever looks at them. I really enjoyed our Zoom sessions this week. It was great to interact with you live, face to face, and we got a lot of learning done. I'm also very proud of all my classes. All of my sessions this week were very well attended. And if you missed any, don't worry. All my Zoom sessions will be posted later that night in our Google Classroom. Simply click the Classwork tab and look for the Zoom sessions heading. This week, we'll have a lot more of the same. We're going to play warm-up echoes together. We'll do some showcase performances. We'll play a game like Quizlet Live, as well as another mini lesson. You can also have some fun with Flipgrid. Last week, we reviewed the blues scale. If you'd like, you can go on Flipgrid and record yourself improvising a solo over the 12-bar blues by simply typing in this flip code, LMS Blues Improv. A few of your classmates have already posted videos. I suggest you go and check those out after the show. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Mr. Basich. Welcome back. Now I'll share my conversation this week with musician and Riverside's own Mr. Chris Basich. Hey, so your performance worked really well. I got that already uploaded to the iMovie, and it's good to go for the show. That was really cool.
Yes, yeah. My dad, what I did for his birthday, my mom and dad they're almost 70 now, and what do you buy for people like that? They're both retired teachers. They have anything that they want, all that kind of stuff. So I try to give them experiences. And so my dad, has played in a band since he was like 12 years old. And so he's been playing music for a long time. And so I thought it'd be cool, since I'm doing some recording, to invite him over and we'd kind of like just jam out and write a song together. So we've written like about 2.5 minutes so far together of that song, though it took us like 3 hours to come up with 2.5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And, it's kind of bluesy, and so he plays the bass on all the stuff in the background, and I've been kind of building it up over time, but we're going to need a couple more sessions. But since the coronavirus stuff happened, we haven't had a chance to reconnect. But
yeah, it's unfortunate, because you guys got a really good start on that song.
Yeah. So I don't know. One of the things I definitely have, as I've gotten a little older, today's actually my birthday. I'm 39 today.
Happy birthday to you.
Yeah, thanks. I don't know. It's funny. Like, I cut my teeth on Metallica and Pantera and all those heavy bands, and really have like a heavy mind for a lot of that stuff. But like, as I've gotten older, I've realized that, I don't know, it's the melody that really hooks you. And I don't know, I'm always searching for it. Even if I just put it in the background over some percussive guitar, I'm always thinking about melody now,
No, I like that, and I've listened to a lot of your stuff. You always share it with me when you post something new to SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And it is melody focused, but you've done a really good job of supporting that melody and bringing it out by all the different stuff you do underneath. Whether it's the drum track or the bass line. I think you've done a really good job just making a whole complete song, not just a melody. Yeah,
that's the fun part for me, is that, I don't ever proclaim to be like God's gift to music, but I like building stuff. I like layering and adding and getting a nice full sound. And I love progressive music. And so I always think about that term literal, like the song should be a progression. And then at some point at the end, somewhere, usually there's some type of moment where everything sort of builds up and it's got that critical mass So that's fun.
Oh yeah. So, before we get too much farther in the interview here, let's talk about why would my students know who you are?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this. I've been in the district for 14 years. Your students wouldn't know me in this capacity, but I actually started teaching at Lamouth. So I know Lamouth really well. That's where we met, and we had lunch duty together, and we had quite the outfit going there. It was pretty awesome, and got to spend some time meeting everyone. And so over the years, obviously went up to the high school and kind of didn't spend as much time at the middle school. But over the last 2 years, in my new role, I'm a college and career readiness coordinator. And that trickles all the way down to really the elementary school, but I do spend a lot of time teaching in those areas at the middle school. So 6th and 7th grade both. I'm down there several times during the year to teach specific lessons on college and career readiness.
So I was always interested, and I know, you mentioned our lunchroom conversations. That was always a good time when we started to become friends and colleagues there. And I can't believe it's been 14 years already, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I knew it's been a long time. We've known each other. And I don't think I've ever asked, did you study band or choir or orchestra when you were in school?
Yeah, so I went to Phillips Osborne School, K through 8, which is now, I guess, Andrews. And while we were at Phillips, they were very purposeful in getting us involved in as many things as possible. Choir, band, drama, sports, all of that. And even though I didn't end up doing all those things as a career or whatever, they sort of tried to build us up as being well-rounded in a lot of different places. So I started playing music for the first time in 4th grade, playing the alto saxophone. And
Nice.
Yeah. And my dad had an old alto saxophone from when he was in grade school, from when he was a kid. And that's what I played. And I mean, it was an old instrument. And I had a really wonderful music teacher. His name was Mr. Dorr. And I still talk with him. He actually just emailed me this morning wishing me happy birthday. And he started teaching saxophone to me. And, he had classes too. And I played in the band. We just called it the band. In 4th grade, I played all the way through 8th grade. And I was, moving through the chairs, and, I was second chair. And then I finally got first chair because the guy in front of me graduated. And that's where I learned how to read music, and I learned time signatures, and I understood rhythm, and I understood all those other things. I was also at the same time in the choir. So I was singing as well. And I was a terrible singer, but at the same point, I learned how to read music, and I learned all the different things that you read when you're reading music, I don't know, the crescendos and all those. I don't look at that stuff anymore, but what I mean.
Performance markings.
Yeah. And how to read, the codas and things like that. But even before all of that, the most probably impactful thing to me was that I grew up in a house that was very music focused. My dad, as I mentioned before, he started playing music when he was, I think he was like 11 or 12, maybe earlier. I'd have to ask him. And he was in a band shortly after that and played bass guitar. He actually still has his first Fender jazz bass, which is a 1960s era, 64, 65, 63, 66, I don't know, somewhere in there. I mean, it is an original Fender jazz bass, which is amazing. I mean, it's awesome. Anyway, he grew up doing all that. So when I grew up in my house, we always had the record player on. We always had music playing. My parents were always going to concerts. I remember them going and seeing like Phil Collins and Genesis and, all those bands and things like that. So I grew up with my mom and dad being very interested in music. My dad wasn't a piano player, but we had a keyboard set up, which I recorded actually something on that exact keyboard that was in my house, an old Kawai 1980s era keyboard. He had his guitars out. So instruments were available to me even before I knew how to play them or really what they were. And that was profound because it was just normal to me.
Well, your family helped to cultivate a real musical culture in the house, and it's really blossomed well. I mean, I'm seeing the end product, obviously, with all the songs you're producing on SoundCloud, but it's just really, you've got a diverse taste in music. Some of your stuff is really soft and smooth, and other stuff really makes you want to rock out.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of eclectic, really. I have this bluesy side that I really like and kind of sentimental. Like the performance video, for example, that I sent over is very purposeful. There aren't a lot of notes, but I try to kind of caress the notes and kind of have them sing a little bit, and they just make me happy. I don't know. You know, I've never been a shred guitar player. I don't have that. I was blessed with big hands, which are good for shot putting and lifting things. But when it comes to very fast motor movement, I don't know that this is the best. But these are the best tools for that. Maybe I should have been a bass player or something. But yeah, I mean, I think about some of my guitar heroes that I like, and we can talk about that stuff a little bit later. But you know, watching those guys do what they do, I tried to do that, and it just never came. But what I did find was I had a really good right hand. And I learned that from James Hetfield from Metallica. I learned all of my right hand technique from that guy, all down picking, all super tight, which when I write a lot of my music, especially the percussive stuff, there's like a double bass going on in the background, and I play all of that stuff in time. I don't edit it or anything. I mean, I try to get as perfect as possible without doing any kind of weird editing, which they do in professional music.
No, but I mean, it comes through in your tracks because it's really authentic. It's a good authentic sound because you're not producing it. You're giving it the real time influence.
Yeah.
You know, why don't we go ahead and go into your influences? You know, you mentioned Metallica, and are there any more either in rock or any other genre that really have inspired you to create the music you make?
I really enjoy guitar centric music. I definitely do. You know, growing up, my dad took me to a lot of concerts, and I grew up seeing Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Eric Johnson and, you know, people like that who are like the, you know, 80s guitar heroes and things, and just watching those guys. And I've met some of those guys actually too, which is pretty cool. He took me to Metallica concerts. I've seen Metallica a couple times, which is really cool. So again, James Hetfield was very inspirational for me on that right hand. I couldn't believe somebody could play like that, so tight and so in rhythm, especially at like Master of Puppets is at like 220 beats per minute, all down picked. I mean, that's just, try it. It's hard. You just want to alternate.
Take your word for it.
Yeah, it's hard. But yeah, and you know, as time has gone on, I've sort of evolved. I really like progressive rock and progressive metal. I'm real into a couple of bands at present that I've seen. One of my fave bands right now is the band called Periphery. They're sort of a guitar-centric super band. 3 guitar players, and they used to have a bass player too. And I've seen them in live. A couple other bands I really like presently. Tesseract is one of my favorite bands. They're out of the UK. And then some of these, I call them the kind of new wave of modern guitarists that are, I think they're my age and younger, that are sort of paving and innovating in the world of guitar. One of those is Tosin Abasi. If you've never seen him before, he's an American guitar player, but his parents are from Nigeria. And he's got some real interesting influences from his parents' kind of music, I guess, lineage, so to say. But he has a really interesting technique. He calls it thumping, where he uses, you've seen like bass slap before with his bass, but he actually incorporates a finger style with that slapping. And so he can actually play percussive guitar at very high speeds by using both sides of his thumb, down, up, but then he can go down, up, 1, 2, down, up, 1, 2, 3, down, up, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's unreal. If you've not seen Tosin Abasi, I've seen him live, unreal. And he's like 34 years old or something. These are all people who I believe are really driving the guitar into new places that we've never really experienced before, because they're taking a lot of elements from jazz, metal, fusion, and they're just meshing it all together. And it's just like, you'll hear like a heavy guitar riff, and then the next thing you'll hear is these amazing jazz chords with huge voicings, and you're just like, whoa, what just happened? Very pleasing to the ear. And another one to listen to as well, if you like kind of a big band sound, Snarky Puppy. Have you heard of Snarky Puppy?
I think that is a wonderful name, but I've not listened to any of their music.
Oh man, you'd love it. Lot of horns, drums, bass, guitar, fantastic. And they've got a keyboard player. I forget the guy's name right now, but he was a child prodigy in piano. He started playing amazingly at like 3 or 4 years old, and to see him as an adult just destroy a pianos, multiples at the same time. I mean, like, he doesn't even look while he's playing. It's super impressive. So I love watching people that are really impressive in that way, but also can feel the music.
I love, you know, just your passion and excitement for making music has really come through. Not only have you given my students a great playlist of different people they may have never heard of before to listen to, But what I want my students to understand too is this: you don't have to go into a professional career as a musician. You don't have to be a music major to make really good music like you do. And so what I'd like you to share is what did you study in college, and what made you, what inspires you to make music now then, even though it's not your main job?
Yeah, no, that's great. For me, I was a psychology major in college. I really enjoy studying the human mind. I actually currently teach advanced placement psychology at the high school. I've been teaching it. This is my 11th year. It's kind of my cup of tea. So I've always been interested in kind of like what goes on in the mind. At the same point, relating that to music, I'm completely just enamored with the idea of having feelings and expressing those in ways, whether it be, authors express it, by writing books, or people express it journaling or via social media, which is really electronic journaling. But I like expressing those emotions via music. In fact, there's a song that I just wrote a while back called Invasion. And, with all of this COVID-19 going on, I was thinking about like what emotions were in my head. And when I was thinking about this virus that has invaded, our world, and in my mind, that song is a direct reflection of what was going on in my mind. And the guitar parts that I wrote in the background were supposed to be sort of sad and somber. At the same point, though, this virus was just coming at us and we just didn't know what to do about it. And so I was trying to reflect my mood in what I was writing through the music. Most people aren't making a living by playing a musical instrument. Most people, they're doing it because they love to play a musical instrument. And that's what I think is important to me. My teaching is what is my profession, but it's not a competition. It's about becoming the best that you can be on whatever it is. I mean, I've taught myself how to play piano a little bit. I'm not a bass guitar player, but I've tried to teach myself how to play bass. I mean, even drum programming, my goodness. And the other side of producing music these days that a lot of people don't realize when they get into it is you got to be good on the computer. Yeah. I mean, learning a direct audio workstation or a DAW, like what I use for recording, that's a whole other education that I've just had to fumble through. And I mean, it is, you open it up and it's like activities available, like whatever you want to do. And it's like, it's not just like GarageBand where it's like, stop, play, like you got like 5 things to choose from. There's just windows and things, and it's a lot. And I've always written music. That's something that I think is really important. I have to give a shout out to my parents. I really appreciate all that they've done for me in that regard. I got my first guitar and amplifier when I think it was the Christmas of I was 14 years old. And I can remember my dad bringing it upstairs from downstairs. It was sort of like the Christmas Story when, hey, what's that behind the tree there, kind of thing. Because Christmas was like over, but all of a sudden he comes up with this little Marshall amp, which, by the way, I used to record that performance video. I did that on purpose. That a little 10-inch, speaker, little amp, and a PV Impact One 1980s electric guitar with gold hardware. I mean, it was straight out of the 80s, and it was the best gift ever. I mean, I didn't stop playing that and haven't stopped playing it for a really long time. In fact, some of my recordings, I use that guitar still just because it is so sentimental to me. So I really have to thank my parents for that. And as soon as I picked up the guitar, though, I started writing my own music. And if there's some piece of advice that I could give to some of the young musicians here, this is just me speaking. I really have found that I learned how to play a lot of my music from studying other people's work. Like I can play almost every Metallica song from front to back. I mean, that's how I learned my right hand technique. That's how I learned how to do my power chords and how to really get in there. But I learned after a while that I wasn't able to use my own voice musically until I started writing my own music. And although my own music wasn't Metallica, it wasn't as good as James Hetfield and all of that other kind of stuff, because he's James Hetfield, it was really good for me. And I want the students to understand that just because you don't necessarily sound like maybe your favorite musicians, and maybe you do, I don't know, but it's your voice, and find your voice and what it is. And music is not a competition. It's never been a competition to me. I did that in sports. I competed in sports. Music for me is to find my voice authentically and to convey that in the music. And I hope that all the youngsters, when they start, realize how important that is to find your own voice and just write something, because it's you. It's all about you.
Oh, Chris, that is an excellent piece of advice. And I really appreciate you taking the time through, you've mentioned your schedule. It sounds really busy. to share your story with my students and my audience. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking me. I always feel really great to be included.
Well, and you did mention that you had a performance for us. This is going to be from Chris's Untitled song. It's still a work in progress, but we'll come back and play that for you after the break. Thanks a lot, Chris. You have a great day.
All right, thank you. You too.
Ladies and gentlemen, sharing one final thought and performing part of his newest song with us, Christopher Basich.
I've always been known as like, oh, Chris is that freak athlete. Chris can bench press 450 pounds, or he can slam dunk a basketball, or whatever it is, but a lot of people don't realize that when I come home, like, I will tell you that if you could pick like the top 3 things in my life, playing music would be one of those. I mean, I adore it. Every night I play every night.
Well, that's our show. I'd like to thank Mr. Basich for being my guest this week and sharing his music with us. Stay safe, everybody, and God bless.